So let me talk about one of those hidden elements that Active Directory has. They call them operations masters per domain controller. They used to be called FSMO, which is the Flexible Single Operations Masters, and those are basically roles that they play on our Active Directory. The DC can basically house all of these, but it is more recommended to have it separated on different kind of domain controller. First is the first of this is the forest level operation masters, which is what is the domain naming. It's responsible for adding, removing domains inside the forest. And the other one is the schema master, which handles all the database definitions, such as changes on schema on the Active Directory. These two can basically be located on one domain controller, and that is a good load balancing configuration. And then there is also the domain level operations masters, which consists of the PDC, which is the primary domain controller emulator. Basically, this one updates all the passwords, group policy, time updates, and acts as a master browser for the whole entire domain. This one is very critical. If this one goes down, you will always, more likely, will feel it. Second to this one is by the way, this one needs to have like a different domain controller set up also to be basically on the load balance or more of a preferable or recommended configuration. This also makes the group policy changes on the server, and the other one is the RID, which is the relative identifier, provides security identifiers, also known as security identifiers for users, computers, and any objects on the Active Directory. This basically, it's like the DHCP. It basically what you call assign a unique seed identifier for any objects that are on the Active Directory. Also, if this goes down, it's not that critical, but we can basically recover it by assigning it to another domain controller. The other one is the infrastructure master that keeps track who's in what group, extremely vital to all. If we have like multiple domain in our forest, infrastructure master should be also on a server that is not a global catalog. However, if all the domain controllers are a global catalog, it doesn't matter where the infrastructure master is located. However, if we don't have an infrastructure master and a domain controller is not a global catalog, then it may have like an issue looking for that role. So these used to be like 5, still 5, but they call them like flexible master operate FSMO. They call them FSMO. It's flexible single operations masters. This is like how we can like load balance, or not load balance, but distribute the operation masters to different kinds of domain controller, and this will basically give you like some kind of visual view of what how it's distributed basically. So doing this will tend to give you like flexibility on redundancy, not redundancy, more of a failures and stuff like that, where you can, if one goes down, you can actually assign it to the other one. Like for instance, if the PDC emulator goes down, this one can be reassigned to the other domain controller by seizing it. There's a command, or like on the GUI, if you right click a domain controller that is not active, you can seize it and then assign it to the domain controller where you want it to be. Usually it will give you choices which domain controller you want it to assign to. Also, that goes the same with the domain naming and schema master. If that goes down, you can assign it to the other domain controller by seizing those roles. You can either assign it on the infrastructure master or the PDC emulator operations master. Also, just to reiterate, the infrastructure master should not be a global catalog. However, the infrastructure master, if all of our domain controllers are global catalog, that infrastructure master should be on a domain controller that is not a global catalog. It doesn't matter where it is if all the domain controllers are global catalogs. These are basically assigned on the sites and services on the Active Directory API, or GUI should I say. Okay, next one is a representation of our domain by entering the syntax on the screen. It's basically netdom, netdom, query FSMO, and then as you see, the schema master and the domain naming master is assigned to USIC2 DC01, and the domain, or the PDC and the RID is assigned to AVCRG DC03, and the infrastructure master, which is not a global catalog, is assigned on AVCRG DC04V. You can test the replication for all of these to be on the what do you call this, to make sure that everything is working properly by entering a syntax reptadmin / sync all, and then at the end of that command, after it launch, you will see like sync all term, it will give you an error or no error scenario or status. So that's the easiest way to basically check if the replication on all the domain controllers are okay. This is how you can find the operation masters on the GUI. So from users and computers, right click on the domain and then go to operations masters. Then you will see that on the first field it says who is assigned to, and then if you're gonna change it, who do you want it to change it to. There's a change button, and it will basically change that. It will take, like, the Microsoft replication time that we set up to replicate on the entire domain. Also, on the Active Directory Domains and Trusts, you will see where on the operation master, if you right click it, this is how you're gonna find the domain naming operations masters. And then this one is basically for the schema master. You'll see it here that it's assigned to DC01, and that's how you get those information via the GUI. So this is a simple syntax on making sure that there's no error on the assignments of the operations master. If the operations master is basically seized or dead, you will see there's an error. So just to reiterate, operations master are assignable role for a domain controller that only one domain controller at a time can do. And then the security identifier are basically the value assigned to an object in an AD for identification on the Active Directory based network. It's assigned by the infrastructure master. Oh yeah, by the way, if you create an operating or Windows 2008 or Windows 7, it will give its own what you call security identifier also, and then it will register that on the AD when you add it to the domain. So on this video, you'll be able to determine or basically distinguish the operations master, identify which one is holding which operation master role, and you can also you learn also how to change the role from one domain controller to another. And then I also told you that if one died, you can seize it. There's a command, seize role. I forgot the syntax, but it's pretty much there on the what do you call this, command prompt. Okay, so this one is a video of how to promote the main controller from a fresh install. This is basically following the default, however, careful on the value where this is additional domain controller rather than new domain on the forest. It's very intuitive, so you won't make a mistake if you are reading what's on the window. And here is basically asking you which domain controller you want to copy all your Active Directory object database information. And whenever you're creating one, like if you're creating from like for instance at SuperNAP, always copy the Active Directory information from the SuperNAP DC, which is closure. That's also a kind of like a common sense or logically, closest domain controller that you can copy from. So you can copy from the farthest one. It doesn't matter, but it's going to take a little bit longer, of course. We have like a lot of Active Directory objects on our domain, for Activision.com domain, should I say. And this is going to give you a scenario or visual aid on how to, or what it takes, or not what it takes, the process or procedure on what to expect on a domain controller when you are promoting it as a domain controller. Also, may I remind you that, of course, it's recommended that whenever you perform this task, that you have to make sure that you have a domain admin privileges on the account that you're using to basically promote a domain controller. Of course, if you don't, you will fail. So This one is saying what kind of role you want to assign it to. So it's a DNS and a global catalog, but not a read-only. Domain controller read-only is basically a domain controller that is non-writable. We don't have any instance at Activision, so we're gonna bypass that, but uncheck that. So here, it's basically the some policy that we implemented for domain controller, where you have to create the directory for the Active Directory database on a different drive, not on the C drive, but a D drive preferably, because of the corruption on the database, and it's just the most recommended way to basically back up or restore an Active Directory database. So here is a password on the local administrator, because upon promotion, the local users will no longer exist on an Active Directory domain controller. So that will just specify from the local database of the SAM what's the password on the administrator account for that particular server, and that usually is a prompt when you're demoting and promoting an Active Directory domain controller. It's also necessary to remember that when you're trying to restore Active Directory domain controller from a restore point, that's the legacy way. The newest restore for Active Directory is much simpler than that, especially on 2008 and above. So this will basically, after all the prompts and all the answer or the questions that you answered on what's on our Active Directory, it will start replicating, writing, and stuff like that. So there's automation on the GUI where you can reboot after the copy, or you can copy later. You can reboot now, copy later, kind of thing. There's also an option where you can import from media, which I used to do, but not anymore because of our backbone being very reliable now, and it's no longer an issue when we create a domain controller on a geographically separated site. So, and forwarding it for time sake, and that's how you promote a domain controller, and it's really a very intuitive procedure. After this one, it's gonna ask you to restart, so it will restart, and then after that restart, it will register every single thing and replication that needs to be done on that domain controller, and usually everything happens within half an hour. So the next one is we're fortunate enough to have a demo of a demotion procedure. It's basically the same. This is where you can specify what password for the local administrator will be after you demote it. You can be creative on that one, but we usually put our default password. So it's going to ask you if this is the last domain controller. Of course, you're going to say no, because we have it's not. So if you do that, there's going to be some issue, because you may not be able to have Active Directory, there's going to be an issue. It's restorable, but it's going to be an issue. So be careful on making sure that this is not the last domain controller when you're trying to demote on our Active Directory domain. And of course, logically, it will, when you submit or when you answer all the question and then you submit or you click OK or apply and next, it will basically erase all the roles, all the objects. It will remove that particular domain controller as a domain controller on our Active Directory, and it will take a few minutes to basically erase all that or unassign, remove, and make it like, not a part of the domain controller infrastructure. It will stop. Sometimes you will see an error. It's basically a issue on replication. You can redo it again, and then it will continue after the second try or the third try. Some old domain controller versions or operating systems that are Windows 2000 and below, and some 2003 will actually act up and do that because of some schema inconsistencies. We don't have Windows 2000 domain controllers anymore. They are mostly Windows 2003 and 2008. 2003 we have 32-bit and 64-bit, so there's some caveats also on those. Mostly all our 2008s are 64-bit though, so moving forward everything will be 64-bit and more consistent compared to what we used to have. Also necessary for the demotion of domain controller on our Active Directory is after the unassigning as a domain controller, removing all the records, DNS, and giving you a restart prompt. After you restart, it is recommended that if you're not gonna reuse that VM or that physical server, to basically rename the host name of the old domain controller so there will be no confusion, and also to of course remove it from the domain as a member server if we don't need it. So there are instances like domain controller is also a file server, so sometimes we leave it there with the same name, but if you're not going to use it anymore, rename the host name and change the IP address or unassign the IP address or reclaim the IP address of the old domain controller for just to alleviate any confusion or miscommunication after the demotion and stuff like that. It's more logical that way, that to guesstimate or presume that domain controller does not exist anymore. Yeah, one example is if it's turned off and somebody turned it on, and then you'll see the name and they go like, that's a DC, how come it's turned off? Something like that. So if somebody turned it on, it's not going to be a DC, blah blah blah. So logically it's more intuitive that way on the user or the admin. And also that's just a recommendation, depends on what you're going to use it for after the what you call this, demotion as a domain controller. Also, it's necessary that after you remove that domain controller to not include that IP address on the DNS list on the domain controller where it's a member of. And that's how you demote a domain controller, and it's fairly easy. You can do this also via command prompt. This particular sequence is a episode, or should I say the next video, is about monitoring, auditing, and maintenance for the AD database. In this video, we're gonna have how to watch our AD stuff or objects, how to monitor, although it's a very subjective, trivial for that one, and who's doing what to our Active Directory. It's also a need to know on that one, or customizable, and how to defrag the AD database. And this is just basically I know you guys are familiar on what it looks like. It's just basically, I just want to represent it as a, where it is, although I know that you guys already know which ones is which one. So on the 2008 tools we can use for monitoring, or monitoring any any different kind of tools we can use is Task Manager, Event Viewer, and Performance Monitor. If we can use these to basically figure out what's wrong, to investigate or troubleshoot, and basically it really helps us on finding out any issues, particular errors or something like that you may encounter while this domain controller is on service. So these are different kinds of monitoring toys that Windows 2008 has. I love the reliability monitor and the data collection set. Personally, whenever I troubleshoot, I heavily use those to find out what's going on. Although, let me show you where those are on the server. This is basically Task Manager. You know how to get there. Right click on the taskbar and go to System Properties, and you will get all the processes, services, performance, networking, who launched it, if it's system or another admin or something like that. There's a new one here on the column, which is I think the description is fairly new on this one, because before it doesn't have a description, which is a good thing also. It's more intuitive that way, and all those tabs you can use as your what do you call this, administration, troubleshooting helper on anything that you need to find out about the server. This is more in depth. It can give you all different kinds of counters, should I say, and if you have time to play with it, feel free to check it out. Like for instance, you'll know who's logged into the domain controller by looking at the users. Like for instance, this one, there are two offshore, me and Sean's are logged in there for some administration that we're doing on a daily basis. Alright, so this is a resource monitor. The resource monitor on the domain controller is that, because it has an overhead in a way, and plus there is a what do you call it, a lockout that I think just we're gonna implement for the domain controller only that you cannot run that without different kind of or without the privileges to run it. However, there's a workaround on that one, and it's after this one. So this the performance monitor. If like you have a CPU hiccup or memory leak or anything that you need to monitor because of an issue, or you just need to report, or you're required to submit a report, this is a good tool to use. However, it's very tedious and very complex sometimes. So if you have time, yeah, you can use that. There are some third-party utilities now that will give you a different, which will an easier way, but more exact on what you want to have or what you want to do. Data collector sets. This is very good tool. It will give you, it will provide you reports on anything on the server. This one is basically a user-defined one that I got from the template at the bottom. I copy that and run it, and it will give you a very detailed report, and then there are some mitigations that is available for you right there and there. So it makes your life a little bit more easier to mitigate any issues that you may have. It gives you a very good information about the server on what happened, resolution on a problem, related problems, and cost actually is a good thing also. So not all failed is bad, so you just have to be what do you call this, mindful of that, so you don't have to turn it on or fix it if you don't have to. Sometimes that's a security what do you call this, implementation, and it is not a very what do you call this, critical event on the server. You can export this and basically learn more about your domain controller. Very interesting. I use it a lot also. And there's another one, which is the reliability monitor. It's not available here by default because of that resource monitor, and not by default enabled because of resource possible, tendency of affecting the server. So this is a backdoor on how to get to that reliability monitor. If you scroll down here, it will give you the what do you call this, the details on what you want to find out and what changed on the server. So if it's gonna scroll down soon, you can like view all problems reports and stuff like that. It will give you a updated what changed on the server, what installed, what stopped working, and it's a detailed progression of the server on when it stopped, where we would last stop, and stuff like that. So as soon as you can do this on most of the what you call it, Windows 2008 server, but on the domain controller, it's more of a You have to enable it whenever you want it. Yeah, you can clear that, so you will have like a progression of from here. There's no problem. You know, you can compare it on the current day since you cleared that. So that's monitoring for the Windows 2008 server. Now let's go to auditing. Auditing is a very sensitive policy because it's not enabled by default on our domain controllers. But this is how we can track changes, who made the change, what object was changed, what was it before, blah blah blah. And I do this every time like there is an issue. Although sometimes if there's a outstanding issue, I turn this on until that issue is mitigated. I'll show you how to basically enable this component on the domain controller. This is by default not enabled. It's a very not complex, but I don't know, a hard thing to explain with the management or security to enable it, and how it accumulate information and whatnot. So it's a very tedious task if you're gonna enable it. So here it is on the group policy. Although I cannot do this live on our domain controller, I created the domain controller that I can show it to you. So basically on a default domain policy, if you edit that, it will give you a similar Windows GUI where you can edit the domain policy, and then from there you can drop down to the to this folders, which is like computer configuration, Windows settings, security settings, and local policies. If you double click that, it will give you an array of what kind of auditing you can enable, or what's enabled, or what's configured, or what's not configured. So basically that's the line where you can or audit, like, you know, Active Directory access changes and what have you. This is how you enable it. When you click on the properties, it will give you that window, and it will give you that check mark for define this policy. You can either like get output for success or failure on whoever is making changes, and then you can get it to basically have an output of that on the event viewer. I'm going to show you after this one, but this is basically how you enable a policy, a group policy for that matters. Just this one is particularly on Active Directory service auditing. So we're gonna go for success and failure for this one, just because to show you what kind of output it will what do you call this, produce. This one determines the access list for the object on the Active Directory, and let me show you how it's configured. Like for instance, this is a domain controller mockup, right? So from that OU, I'm gonna create a user. like over here, there's a user and properties. I'm gonna create a, let's see, okay, so this organizational unit, it has security, and then from security you go advanced, and then from advanced you're gonna have like auditing tab, and click on the auditing tab, and then over here by default everyone is audited to be success on it, but as you can see here, it's only success on right for GP link, so it's a very generalized auditing. So I'm gonna put authenticated users group, which everybody is a member of, and then from the apply to, I'm just gonna leave it that way, so it will be on that organizational unit only. And I'm gonna say write all properties for the access as successful and failed. So we'll see what the output of that will be. Also, let me go back here. Hold on. Let me let me just talk to you about a checkbox that I kind of ignore. So let me go back here. So on this apply, yeah, just leave that on that default. This object only, and it's what do you call this? And it's from within this object only. Apply this. Just leave that unchecked for the apply this from the inheritable position, because you don't want to do that. So from here, if you go to event viewer, just to be ready, and go to security, you will see that there is a bunch of events here. So I'm just gonna clear this just to make sure that all the changes that I'm gonna do will easy to find. So, and this is a mock-up domain controller, so it doesn't matter if we delete it or not. So, and yeah, that's the reason why I cannot do it on our active domain controller. So let me create an object. So from that New York OU on the users, I'm just gonna create one. Just call it audit test. Alright, and I'm gonna do a password purposely, so it will show on the output. And click finished, and there it is. So let me do some kind of like major changes. I'm gonna delete it, and then on the event viewer under security, you will see that particular set of actions are recorded on the security event viewer. Like for instance, the deletion is right here, and you will know who deleted it, which account was deleted, what's the status, if it's successful or not, who deleted it, and Some details here are basically more specific on that object. What's the SID, and some information that you may need to know. Any actions that we took from that object was actually outputted here on the security. Let me see which one is this. Account was enabled when we created, and then I think there's also a output on the username password that it was not matching or something like that. Account was created, password required, enabled, very detailed. Let's see if I can make that one appear. Oh, yeah, if you go to those properties one at a time, you will see what I'm talking about. On every single step that you did is actually accounted and audited and listed on that event viewer. So, what else is here? The account was logged off. You can export. This is the action pane. You can do a lot of stuff there. So. Alright, so next one is tuning up AD database. I do this probably once a month, just because to make it more efficient, because we add so much information on our database where it gets so fat, and it's just basically defragmenting it in a way, for lack of better description. So running this on a regular maintenance is recommended, and our Active Directory may, result on a or what do you call this? The queries are much faster. By the way, yeah. It's like any database where, if you delete an object, it doesn't shrink it. It will leave it there as an empty space and blah blah blah. It's like Exchange. So, in a way, we use the ntds util command to basically do all this tune-up. These are the procedure on how to do it. So you activate it, go to files, you either compact or check integrity, or basically analyze your database. I'm going to show you all those after. Let me just prepare it. NTDS util is a very good tool. Just be careful on how to use it. Sometimes you can easily do damage by using that. So by the way, compacting or defragging database, it doesn't defrag it on the fly. It creates a copy of the ntds.dit, which is our Active Directory database file name. I will show you on basically a step-by-step on how to do that compact, so you'll get the hang of it very easily. It analyzes the consistency of the database, so that's self-explanatory in a way. What else? All right, so I'm not gonna do this active on the ATVI domain, so I'm gonna do this on this markup domain controller. And TDS util is activated, so you're gonna go NTDS util activate, or write the spelling, of course. Wait. Huh? Oh, sorry. Activate instance NTDS. Alright, so it activates it, and then you can type in help, or if you know what to type, just go ahead. But if help or question mark will actually give you an array of syntax help. So you go to files, and it's gonna say the ntds.dit is running. This is because we need to stop AD services. By the way, AD services is new on 2008. It didn't exist on any other version. It started just the 2008 version. So it is actually cool. We can actually stop Active Directory services before we have to restart the server to invoke that kind of what do you call this feature. So that's the Active Directory Domain Services service. Stop this to be able to perform all the tasks that we're gonna need to do. When you stop this, it will stop a bunch of dependency services also. As long as we have more than one domain controller, it's okay. It's not gonna hiccup or anything like that. You will get that error every now and then because of replication. So by stopping again, it will stop after that. So from here, you go Files, and then it will give you file maintenance. What do you call this? Options. And what you want to do is basically what your task is actually, going to be for. So if you type in help, it will give you all the help syntax or objects that you can do from that point of NTDS util. So we're going to do the compact, which is the compact database to specify directory. So basically, I told you before, compact will create a copy. It will not add, dynamically shrink it. So I usually put it on the C drive, and then I'm going to name it very intuitively, so I will not lose it. And then from there, it will give you that graphical interface where it's a progression of the process, by the way. And then after that, it will create an ntds.dit on the C drive. Now it will also tell you what to do next after the compact task. It will say like you need to copy that file to the Windows NTDS which we call directory, which is in essence overwriting the old one because we don't need the old one anymore. And that's the new one, which is 12. Well, it will not show the size difference. So this on our Active Directory database, it will show though. So we can delete or rename whatever you feel like doing to play safe or for record or historical purposes or something like that. So just copy it. Yeah, you have to quit NTDS util to be able to do that, by the way. So copy anything that you wrote on the wherever you wrote that database to the existing or to the default location. Also, after this one, it will say like delete the logs. Of course, you know, compacting the database is like basically what do you call this? You don't need the logs anymore after you compact it. It's basically the transaction is cut off and stuff like that. So you don't need the logs for transaction purposes anymore. So it's committed, should I say? So those logs should go. You don't need them anymore, and it's a very good what you call. It's a very good idea to delete it because it's just gonna populate it and take space. So after that, let me show you on the here. After copying it to that to the default location, this is a good way to basically check the consistency or integrity of the database. So by doing file maintenance integrity, it will check the integrity of the new compacted database. It says here that it is recommended that you run the semantic database analysis to ensure that semantic database consistency as well. So do that also. However, I think it's not on this level. Let's see. Yeah, it's not on that level. So it's on the level before this one. So if you go exit or quit, sorry, quit. And then you go help, it will be here, semantic database analysis. So just type it in the way you see it, and it will run the same progression visual aid, or you know, that progress bar that we see here, and then it will tell you that it's doing the analysis and stuff like that, and then it will tell you when it's successful or not. Help here. When you do help, it will give you what kind of check you want to do. Do you want to go just go check it or fix it up? I'm a very good fan. I mean, I'm a fan of the fix it up. I don't want to, you know, if it's a very big database, I just want you to fix it up for consistency. Mostly, it will not give you any error on inconsistent database or anything like that because you stopped it, and plus it's not gonna make you make an error anyway. So just type in go fix up, and then it will basically, oh by the way, I forgot, I'm typing this but I'm not saying it, so make it verbose so you will see what's going on. Ah, 1 second. So it's very fast. So with that in mind, I think our database is consistent. So quit, and let's check it. All right. By the way, on after you've done that, it's always good to do a restart on the Active Directory domain services service. So, we don't have to, get that alert saying like this is not replicating or something like that. So anyway, here are some uh, words that you may don't want to forget. NTDS.did is basically the Active Directory database. Compact is basically how you, in a way, defragmenting your AD database. It's removing all the empty spaces on the AD database from NTDS util. The util will basically give you a procedure on what to do. Integrity is checking the database on all the records that hold exactly where they are supposed to do. By the way, in a database, if you don't know, records are rows, columns are fields. So as long as the rows are good, integrity is okay. Because some columns may be empty and stuff like that. So, and if you don't have the right rows on where they're supposed to be, that's a corrupted database, so you have to restore it. So this video will basically help us to know how Task Manager is, or where it is, Event Viewer per se, Reliability Monitor, Performance Monitor, and that's right. Sorry, I have to say that. Nothing else better to do with your time, because Performance Monitor is really tedious and very complex. Data collection set is my favorite actually. It gives you a bunch of information that you want or don't want to know whenever it's necessary, and then you'll just take yourself saying like, oh, I have that. Enable auditing policies for the domain controller via GPO, and you should be able to view the results of auditing policies that you enabled in the event. View the event viewer. Use NTDS util to defrag your database and check for integrity and your database consistency. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I was like, making this video short. So next one is user groups and the AGUDLP strategy. And this is basically the tip of the iceberg on users and groups on Active Directory. It's not all of it, but it's a good fundamental. So time for adding more users on this video. Types of groups. What are the types of groups? You'll see a bunch of like what kind of groups, blah blah blah, and let me explain those to you. So on my mock-up domain controller, like for instance, we have two domain that are trusting each other, right? And one is in New York and one is in Chicago per se. Like for instance, those are two domains, right? The proper way to create a user is create your users on your respective sites or domain where they belong, and then create the groups of those users, and that will be global local group, universal group, and domain local group. So let me give you an example here. I'm creating it as we speak. So from this organizational unit, I'm gonna create like another OU for sales, ops, and then for Chicago, it doesn't really matter because there is no categorization for that except if it's a server or whatnot. But you know, let's just focus on the users first, or the accounts first. So, all right. So for this user sales, I created like, you know, fictitious accounts, and I'm gonna create groups. One is a global group or global security group, and I'm gonna name this let's say she sales, just for simplicity's sake. And then I'm gonna create another one. I'm gonna call it she sales manager, for like, you know, different kind of role for each users. And then another group for she, let's say global, no, ops is good. Okay, so I think I made a mistake on that one. So hold on, let me make sure. Oh yeah. All right. So I'm gonna assign all the users here on Chicago ops, and then the last two I'm gonna assign on the Chicago ops managers, just to provide some kind of a, you know, what do you call this, realistically example. So let me add those two users to this group, and then I'm gonna do the same on sales. Just check this. Alright, on sales, I'm gonna do all the users except for the last two on users, and the other two I'm gonna put it on the managers. Alright, let me explain why I did this. Alright, so, you know, there's also a group, they call it like shadow group. There are two types of core groups. One is security group. The security group allows you to grant permissions to your resources, like file share, print share, any share that you wanna, you know, have, like, you know, sharing on, or group sharing. There's also distribution group, which is basically an email list distribution that we're not gonna what do you call this, kind of like discuss here. I'm just gonna make it, like, you know, available there so you'll know that it exists also. We have a bunch of these, by the way. And then there are three scopes of security group. This is the one I'm talking about. One is a global group, which is usable in any domain in your forest. You know, a trusted domain in your forest. Users can only come from that home domain. So a global group on Activision.com, all members on those are only Activision.com accounts. It cannot be Vivendi.com accounts. It cannot be IW.com accounts or Blizzard.com accounts. Universal group is basically used in any trusted domain in our forest. Users can come from any domain. I'll explain more about that. We don't need this if we only have one domain. I'll get over that one also as we progress. Universal group is basically if we have more than one domain, we need that. And then there's the domain local group, which is usable in the domain it lives in only. User can only come from the home domain. It's not the same as the local group domain, but it is kind of like similar, but it's not. The global group, you can use any on the forest. This one can only on that domain. Global, anywhere. Universal, come from anywhere. And then this one is from that domain only. I know, it's I think, let me see. Any users from the domain local group can be a member of the universal group to be assigned for a different domain other than ours. All right, let me give you this one. It's the AGUDLP protocol. I use it a lot before. It's basically how you make sure that everything is copacetic and it's not gonna give you like, how come this one doesn't have an access, this one does, stuff like that. If we have multiple domains, we have like a lot of access privileges or different kinds of way to do it, right? But this one will actually give us like more a repeatable what you call scenario. Here's how it works, right? The global group accounts, the accounts that goes into the global groups are basically accounts from within that domain, right? Global group. This global group you can then assign under the universal group as a member. So wherever you need access to on a different domain, this can actually provide access to those on a different domain. And then the universal group can be a member of the domain local group. So within the domain, users from a different domain can be a part of a share from a local domain through universal group, because the global group cannot be assigned directly to the local group. It has to be this way. It has to be that way. You cannot assign global group directly to the domain local group, which is where your resources are located. Let me reiterate here. Universal group is only used if we have more than one domain. We don't need it if we only have one domain. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Why are we using it? We have one domain. I'll explain later after this. All right, so let me reiterate to you. We have universal groups, so we can assign global groups from within the domain, from another domain, from another domain, on a universal group, so we can add it to the domain local group, so it's only one instance. We don't have this domain global group assigned there, this domain global group assigned there, this domain global group assigned there. Universal global group is basically a basket holder for all the global group that you want to assign to a particular share. Here. So this is an example on my domain controller. Like for instance, these are the sales users accounts, right? On the Chicago sales domain. And it's I assigned a global group on it. And then on the parent domain, which is like the North America domain, not the Chicago, but North America domain, there's a universal group. And that universal group, perhaps I'm going to call it all sales from different kinds of sales, which whole group within the global Active Directory trust different domains, right? I'm going to put it all here, so there's only one sales group that can access a particular shared folder for all sales, located on a, somewhere else. It's just basically one point user assignment, so there is no multiple users from different kinds of domains. That's how it makes it simple for universal group. Only if you have multiple domains. We don't do that here at Activision, however it exists. I'll explain that to you why afterwards. What we did here in Activision is we signed a bunch of universal group and then put it on a local domain and then put that domain group, assign it to the resource that we wanted to give privileges to. So yeah, this is what I call a shadow group. Basically, a shadow group is all the members, all the user accounts on that particular OU. I put it on a shadow group, so I don't have to specify if it's a manager or a regular users, or non-manager, should I say. So if all those users needs to have access on a particular resource, I'm just going to use the Chicago or Shy sales for everybody on that OU or on the sales department. So I don't have to say add sales and then add sales manager. It's only just going to be one group. That makes sense? Yeah, so instead of having multiple groups, you can only have one per domain for the users that you need to give privileges to. Of course, you're gonna put on the description, it's a shadow, so it means all accounts within that organizational unit belongs to that group. Also, another let me create one, is all sales is going to be our universal group, which is let me see, universal security. I don't think I want to create it here. Hold on, let me think. All right. Yeah, I want to create it here. So I'm gonna create another universal group, and then I'm gonna assign Chicago all sales on that security group. So rather than assigning two different kind of groups, I only assign one. Makes sense. So, for instance, if you have more all sales department somewhere else, I don't know. And any trusted domain that we may have, which we don't have. So yeah, I'm explaining this to you for fundamentals, which call reasoning and purpose, not for applying it to Active Directory. I'll explain more later. ATVI Active Directory, should I say. Alright, so if I go to change domain here, because I have a child domain from globalmatics.com, I created a bunch of child domain NA, Chicago, New York, child domains, not OU, child domains. Then I will have no problem assigning resources using universal groups from those child domains for fencing, administrative, separation and whatnot. That's the best way scenario to basically gain access on resources that you want to share. And plus it will alleviate like any admin conflicts from the child domain to the parent domain. It's just easier that way. It's more when you practice this, it will get more logical to you. Right now, kind of doesn't make sense because you don't see it every day. But when you see it every day, it's gonna be like second nature to you. And then, like for instance, if I logged in as a different user and then I go to that child domain, I won't be able to see anything, and that's basically the fencing that I'm telling you, where a particular, like for instance, the child domain admins or domain admins cannot see anything above, their their domain. They won't see anything, or they won't be able to configure or administer any objects within or beyond their domain infrastructure. Like for instance, if we have Activision.com and then we have Neversoft.activision.com as the child domain, anything on that Neversoft is only on that Neversoft. That admin there will not be able to see anything on Activision.com other than any read-only that we probably allow them to read. Right now, it's not structured that way. It's structured as an OU, and then we give privileges on that one, and now it's all convoluted, where we give like domain admin privileges on everybody because of GPO, which called privilege, which called assignment and whatnot, and DNS and what have you. It's a little bit more complicated, but we're used to it, and we know kind of like at the back of our heads like which one is being activated or which one is not, although we lose track sometimes. It's a management or security what do you call this policy and rules implementation from there on. So this is just to basically proving to you that this account will have access to this one given its credentials, and it will be able to open it and whatnot. See how I type in the domain and then the user and then my password, so I'll be able to get in on that domain and be able to assign the groups that I want to give privileges to on the resources I want to share. And that's kind of like the security on a child domain, parent domain, or a forest with child domain infrastructure that we don't have. However, let me begin this while I'm doing this. Activision.com was actually meant to have like a bunch of child domain before. However, because of a complexity and a very lengthy process to renew all privileges and whatnot. Yeah, we didn't do it that way. We just did OU per OU and then give privileges. So that's how it happened. But before, it's planned to have child domain. This is basically a visual aid on what I did for the mock-up domain infrastructure, where this child domain with resources can log in to the any account on the naglomantics.com account will be able to log into the parent, or forest should I say, because of a catalog server. Without that catalog server, we won't be able to log in properly. That's why we have an option that if we do not have any catalog servers, such as read-only domain controllers or whatnot, that we have to enable a caching on site. Feature that Active Directory sites and services offer. We have an option that if we don't have any catalog or global catalog domain controller, we can enable that, and then they will be able to log in with their respective username from a child domain to a different a trusted domain where they need to basically access to. So yeah, this is a representation of the child domain on the Active Directory sites and services. So let me give you properties here, and yeah, this is how you enable it if you don't have a global catalog. This is grayed out because it's a global catalog. So yeah, it will not make a mistake. It will not allow you to make a mistake. So if you see this not grayed out, more likely that you don't have a global catalog. And if you see that, either make sure that you enable it, or make sure that you check where the global catalog is, if it's dead or not. Just enable it. So important words are security groups. Security groups are object in Active Directory that allows you to provide access to resources on the network wherever it may be. Distribution group is an object that acts as an email list, or distribution list should I say. Global group is a group usable in any trusted domain in your forest. User can only come from the home domain and can be a member of a universal group. Universal group is a usable in any trusted domain in your forest. User can come from any domain, can be a member of, and the universal group can be a member of the domain local group. Domain local group is a usable only in the domain it lives in. Users can only be from that domain itself. You cannot assign anybody from the child to that domain local and give it privileges. No, you can't. Okay, so basically, yeah, you know now what global, universal, and domain local groups are, the differences. If you're confused, don't hesitate to email me or call me or talk to me, and I can explain more. You can basically know the what you call limitations of a domain local groups. You can distinguish between security and distribution groups that we did not discuss, because this is not email, this is Active Directory. You'll be able to know what AGUDLP means as a kind of like a guideline if we have more than one domain. If we don't have more than one domain, basically we won't need universal type of group. We have it here because it used to be implemented, or it's supposed to be implemented with the child domain, but we did not. Although some of the companies that we acquire over the years are just trusting first, and then eventually we kind of like grab it. So or
I gotta tell you something. So funny. I just realized it. Wait, I'll be there. Hold on.
And then this is also taught us how to basically design a good, user groups privileges